Hello, this is Shawn Harwell. You are listening to the Never Heard of It podcast.
And this is Craig Moorhead, and you are still listening to the Never Heard of It podcast.
How about that? We didn't stop. Craig, how you doing, bruv?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. We watched
excellent.
a crazy movie, and I can't wait to talk about it.
I can't either. Let me ask you one question right up front, though.
Please.
Have you ever gnashed your teeth so hard that they rasp?
No, not rasp, no.
Okay, well then I think we have something to talk about. Our movie today is called Why Don't You Play in Hell? I love that title. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll talk about this later. I'm not quite sure what the hell it has to do with the movie. But it's a very fun title, and this is a Japanese movie from the year 2013. It was released in 2014 in America by Drafthouse Films. And this is directed by, forgive me on the pronunciations, I believe it's Sion Sono, and stars Yun Kunimura, Fumi Nakaido. How am I doing?
That sounds perfect. Perfect pronunciation.
Shin'ichi
so
Tsutsumi, Hiroki Hasagawa, and I'm going to stop at Jin Hoshino.
Excellent.
Who was actually one of my favorite characters. Thank you very much, Craig. Mm-hmm. I've been eating a lot of sushi lately, so I feel like that played a part there.
Got to.
I doubt it. Why Don't You Play in Hell is somewhat of an action film, and our synopsis today is coming from Wikipedia. There's a war going on, but that won't stop the inexperienced but eager wannabe film crew, the Fuck Bombers, from following their dreams of making the ultimate action epic. 10 years ago, Yakuza mid-boss Ikigami led an assault against rival Don Muto. Now, on the eve of his revenge, all Muto wants to do is complete his masterpiece, a feature film with his daughter Mitsuko in the starring role before his wife is released from prison. And the Fuck Bombers are standing by with a chance of a lifetime to film a real live Yakuza battle to the death on 35mm. I should ask you, Craig, any sort of overarching feelings about Japanese film?
I don't know a ton about Japanese film, but I'm certainly a fan of a lot of Japanese movies. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and I guess this was more a thing around the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, but Japanese horror has left a huge fingerprint on everything that we do in America now.
Right. Any standout films from that genre? Maybe people should check out.
I'm a big fan of a movie called The Suicide Club,
Interesting. Okay.
Which feels sort of akin to this, and I wish I knew a little bit more about the stuff that's going on over there, because Suicide Club is one of those movies that feels so unhinged that you get that dangerous feeling of like anything could happen.
Well, Craig, would you believe me if I told you that was also directed by Sion Sono?
Jesus, that makes me feel stupid.
It's okay. I'm not trying to make you feel stupid.
And
when you said it, I was like, this rings a bell from what I looked at his filmography. And yeah, there it is. A detective is trying to find the cause of a string of suicides. Suicide Club.
And that is kind of the synopsis of the movie. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I remember watching Suicide Club and just feeling more satisfied with watching that as a horror movie than I had in, I don't know, probably since I watched Scream.
Wow.
Which was one of those movies again that was like, everyone's so tired of slasher movies, and then Scream was a very good slasher movie. Mm-hmm. Whereas Suicide Club just had really kind of had no equal as far as I was concerned. There wasn't anything like it. And just the fact that it was Japanese, and you kind of have that impenetrable Japanese thing, and the culture is in so many ways so different from what we have and the way we think and the way we do things. I don't know. It all worked really well. So hats off to this young man, who I guess is not that young, maybe.
He's not. And that is something I kind of we'll talk about here in a little bit. Yeah. But Yeah, so maybe let's all go check Suicide Club out. That's interesting. I think maybe this also had to, an impact on why this particular movie, Why Don't You Play in Hell, probably came to America, because he clearly has some sort of reputation as a horror filmmaker, or as a filmmaker of note. But I think for me, this movie popped up. I think it was just, I was looking at like letterboxd.com and saw the title, obviously immediately stood out to me. Mm-hmm. And I should point out that according to Wikipedia, that actually it translates more to What's So Bad About Hell, which I think is also an interesting...
Yeah.
And some way, I kind of like that a little bit better, although both are fun and playful titles.
They are. But yeah, the other one actually makes a little more sense.
Maybe. I'm still not sure. But I was like, okay, what is this movie? I watched the trailer. I won't say hooked right off the bat, but intrigued. And here's part of my trepidation, I think, was, and this is, I'm not sure where this preconception is coming from, but movies that are about movies or involve like filmmakers as characters, I think I immediately kind of have like a built-in groan level to that.
Yeah.
And yet I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, why? And like, I can name so many movies, Barton Fink right off the bat, like that are about Hollywood that I love. So,
yeah.
So I don't even know where this bias necessarily is coming from. If you are like-minded and put off by that element, I don't know. That we'll get into it, but that it worked to me because we're starting out with this film dealing with teenagers, or maybe I don't know. Were they teenagers? Or they're
I think they were. Yeah, I think they were teenagers.
Maybe
at that point.
early 20s at the latest.
Right.
This group of kids. There's like 5 of them. 1 director, 2 camera person, and then like 2 actors that get discarded, who basically love cinema and love making movies. They're out there with their video cameras, and they wander upon a basic, like a low-level street brawl between 2 sort of very low-level and young gangs, and immediately start filming it and are excited by it and kind of strike up a kinship, the director does, with the kind of head thug of one of the gangs, who's again like a teenager named Sasaki, right?
Perfect.
Sasaki, and convinces him that he can be an action star in all their movies. And like, to me, there was something so playful about even like that as a setup, and how that then translates to later in the film, because this movie, the bulk of this movie, well, I guess it's a bulk. I don't know. I think I try to pay attention to it, but I feel like it's maybe a closer to an even split. Does take place 10 years after that setup. Mm-hmm. And you're dealing with these young filmmakers now who have never made a movie. The director, Harada, has made a trailer for a movie. And that was like 4 years ago, and he's still watching it, and he's still showing it to girls to impress them. But Sasaki,
and I think this is just kind of important. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, please.
But this was one of the things that kind of endeared me to that character in the movie in general. Is yes, it's been 10 years. He's made 1 trailer, and he's still absolutely as enthusiastic about making movies as he ever has been.
If not more so.
Yeah.
If not more so.
If not more, exactly. Like he hasn't lost any of that, which is just, that's great.
But Sasaki has.
Yeah.
Sasaki has been running around for 10 years in a Bruce Lee jumpsuit, the yellow tracksuit, waiting to make this movie, and like being sort of the pawn of this, enthusiastic but kind of annoying and full of himself director Harada. And just finally has enough of it. Yeah. And like, he's out. He's got a job in a restaurant, and at least it like pays the bills and all this stuff.
He's the realistic one. And the other guys are just so like addicted to movies. Mm-hmm. That's all they can think about, all they want to do.
But there's a whole other element of this movie, which is this, Yakuza mob side of it. And what's really interesting about the structure is it takes a while to really see how these 2 things connect. In fact, the movie opens with a young girl, Mitsuko, who I think is probably like, I don't 9 or 10 years old, singing a jingle in a, I guess it's a toothbrush commercial.
Yeah.
And the translation that they have is what I asked Craig up front. Like, Gnash, it goes, Gnash with all your might, let's go, Gnash until they rasp, let's fly. I think that somehow is translating to smile, like gnash your teeth is like smile big enough. Anyway, so the jingle, I mean, this starts before the credits start. And so I had no clue what this is. I just thought, is this just some weird Japanese thing? Like, am I literally watching some commercial that they attach to this movie? But then, no, you do see this girl later, like, as she discovers this awful aftermath of a huge bloodbath battle between her mother, who was protecting her gangster husband, Muto, and the rival gang led by Ikegami, who'd, like, come to attack them at their house. And, like, this girl walks in to what is probably like 3 or 4 inches deep of blood that just fills an entire room. It's a really cool shot. And then slides across it to talk to the Ikegami guy. And he's like enraptured by her. And all of that is happening so separately. The only connection we get is that when Ikegami, who does survive and walks away from that scene, is walking back to wherever their headquarters is, he's got blood all over him, and the fuck bombers, the young filmmakers, are out with their cameras. They see him, and they start filming him. Because, of course, Hirata finds this guy amazing and cinematic and all these things. So I don't know. I mean, did you have any sense of how this was all going to kind of connect? And that's one of the things, like, even, I don't know if you remember, like, in that very first, like, little street brawl, there's these 2 guys driving a truck that kind of are trying to get through there, and they just seem like throwaway characters. And then 15 minutes later, you're like, oh, those are the guys hanging the sign outside the gangster's home.
Right.
And then they show up again 10 years later, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And so it's a bit of a puzzle to unravel, and I think that's also a good reason for us not to completely unravel it for you. But how were you able to sort of sustain your interest through those first a half hour to an hour before the stories really start to connect and you see, I mean, that synopsis, if I just told you that synopsis, and specifically if I told you that synopsis and said it's a Hollywood movie, you would get 20 minutes of prologue, and then these fuck bombers would be making a movie with the Yakuza for the other 90 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like, it would be the second act, and it would be the third act, completely.
Yeah. If it was an American movie, first of all, you would have a main character.
Yep.
I mean, and that's, I feel like that's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Like, because there really isn't. It starts out and you feel like the fuck bombers and the main guy, Harada.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like he's going to be the main character, and then 10 minutes later, yeah, you're in with a completely different cast of characters, and you start to realize, oh no, like, it's just all these people kind of going about their lives. All these things are going to come together. It became strange to me that they even started with him.
I know,
because
or the girl for that matter.
By the end, by the end, he didn't seem like. What do I want to say?
I mean, in some ways, he's not essential,
right,
to what happens. And in fact, I found myself almost rooting more for the gangster husband,
yes.
Muto.
Yeah,
because, and that's what's crazy about this movie. Like, when we're talking about it as a Western thing, this kind of is a story about the mob making a movie. Mm-hmm. And like, if you said that, if Hollywood makes a movie about the mob making a movie, again, my groan radar is going off the charts. Yeah. Like, that to me just sounds bad.
Yes.
But this guy, the reason they're making a movie 10 years later is because he's led his wife to believe the whole time, this woman who killed for him and went to jail, that their little daughter, that star of the commercial, the toothbrushing commercial, is starring in a movie, which she was, but then she walked off the set and quit. And he's been telling his wife that, no, the movie's almost finished and it's going to come out and our daughter's going to be a star and you're going to be amazed when you see this thing. And like, he's so, like, smitten with his wife and wants to to do something nice for her, and like there's that whole emotional speech about why the mob should make a movie and why his Yakuza gang should do it, that I totally bought into that. And like, but that again is like an hour and a half into this movie probably. And so I was like, oh my God, okay, now I know what's going to happen. These gangsters are going to make a movie. Somehow they're going to get our fuck bombers involved to make the movie. And then this is going to play out to the end. All these strings will be tied together.
Right.
But yeah, you got to work to get there a little bit.
Well, luckily everything is entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where it gets by. I mean, again, the filmmakers are so in love with making movies that you kind of love them, even though that's all they talk about. That's the only thing that's important. Right. There's nothing else. Like they could be robots that are there to simply make movies, but they're not, and it's more entertaining that they're not. But yeah, exactly. Like I loved the mob boss's wife, just because of the fact that she all these guys show up to murder her husband, and she basically just slices and dices every single one of them.
Right.
And then
which is by the way, that's a really nice. Even just beyond the sort of action spectacle of that and the sort of macabre nature of it, how many mob movies have you seen where the wife is just a throwaway?
Oh, yeah.
You know, she's just eye candy and, like, they hate each other and all these things. And, like, I mean, I'm hard-pressed to think of another gangster movie where the lead gangster is in love with his wife and vice versa. Like, I really am. Like, you know, maybe The Godfather. I mean, that's about it. Like, you know.
So, but yeah, exactly. And because of her, I liked that mob boss, and kind of wanted to see him. I don't know, succeed. I don't really care if he succeeds. Like his goal is so bizarre.
Right.
It's you're really just. You know all these things are going to tie together, and the more you go through the movie, the more you see how they're going to tie together, and everyone's interesting enough to watch, you know. So it's I do kind of want to watch it a couple more times, honestly, just to see, is there something more there that I'm missing? Because of course, fool that I am, you get to the end and you have the fuck bombers filming all of this, and all I can think of is they can't possibly film any of this. Like, if any film that came out of this is just going to be a mess, you can't follow. Can't follow anything that's happening.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because what's being set up is these guys are being hired to film basically a raid on the other mob,
right?
A war, and it does not disappoint in that. Department, I didn't think you. I mean, you get a solid 20 minutes of swords,
mayhem,
and guns, limbs flying everywhere, blood up to your eyeballs. It's just, and again, like all of it, I felt like I'm at least following this.
Right.
You're absolutely right. I don't know how the hell they would make a movie out of it, but it was comical to watch.
Yeah.
There's the moment where, I mean, they're literally walking in with like 35 millimeter Panavision cameras, dolly tracks, and lights.
Well, I mean, and they set it up. I mean, they like go in and they sort of talk to the other clan, and they're just like, "Here's what we want to do," which is great. I mean, all that stuff is super funny. Like, there's plenty of stuff. Like, they do stop the action sometimes, and kind of like,
well, they somebody like tripped over the cord for one of the like. The lights that they were using. It's like all the lights went out. Like, hang on, let's plug the lights back in.
But and I guess that's the thing. And I did get hung up on it, and I realize that's a dumb move to get hung up on. But there was a part of it for me where these guys are in love with film, and they have their projectionist friend there, and they seem to just be in love with movies, and they're going to make the best movie of all time. They're going to make a movie that will be remembered forever, and they would give their life to make an amazing movie.
That's all he wants to do. Yep, he says he wants to make one movie to be remembered for, and if it kills him, that's fine.
And granted, if someone filmed an entire real Yakuza raid that looked like that, it would be remembered. But I guess
it would. That's on the internet.
That was another thing that I couldn't. I don't want to say it was necessarily a letdown, but it's like, but that's not a movie. I mean, it's like not a fight that you might put on YouTube but it's like it's not a story of any kind. Like
You're absolutely right. I think what I appreciated was I feel like if you've made anything with no budget or just like a low budget thing, a short film, anything, you get in that situation where it's like, well, shit ain't gonna be like what I thought it was gonna be. All right, well, let's just go. Like you just gotta go with it.
Sure.
Like I don't know. Is this gonna work? Who knows? Like I'm just gonna run with it, and that's kind of what they do. So I gave them a pass slightly for that.
Well, and I think on my part, it's a little bit just not buying into the fun of what's happening.
Gotcha.
And that's my own downfall. Like,
I mean, it's a long fight. Like
it is.
I can see it being easy to tune out. I felt like this movie did an exceptional job of letting all those minor personalities have memorable face. Mm-hmm. Like at least there's the guy that's doing the audio that just smokes all the time, and like at least like okay, he's mob member number 7, mm-hmm. but he's memorable. Like when you see him, you know that guy.
Yes.
And there's so many of those that without that, man, that last thing would have been a complete wash.
Yeah,
Because you would have just been like, I don't care about any, like, who are these people that are dying?
Yeah.
Like, it means nothing.
But let me ask this. I mean, without it draining the fun out of the movie, how much did you care about anyone in the movie?
I can tell you exactly who I cared about was... I did end up caring about Muto, the mob boss, mm-hmm. The husband, specifically like what you were talking about. Like, I kind of wanted to see him deliver this thing to his wife that he'd promised to her.
Yeah.
But I also, and it's so weird because it's tonally almost a different movie. Totally in love with the Koji storyline. When you see him in the first 10 years of this movie, he's just a young man staring at this toothbrushing commercial and this girl, Mitsuko, at like a TV in a store window. And somebody says something about maybe one day that'll be your girlfriend or whatever, and he's just like, what? Like, it's like he's so embarrassed at the idea of it. And then later, Mitsuko is trying to escape from her dad's mob. She's been on the lam because she was supposed to be acting in this movie and got fed up with it and left and was dating some guy. They track her down, and so she's trying to run away from them. She sees a guy in a phone booth and immediately runs over and asks him to pretend to be her lover, to kind of basically fool the guys chasing her. And that's Koji 10 years later, the same kid. And like he's just this like sad sack, like striped polo. Like everything about him was just like the most pathetic guy. But she strings him along in this whole thing of like pretending to be involved with her and gets him basically in that life or death situation that he has no good way out of. It makes her extremely unlikable, and yet it was just such a weird kind of take on like a true romance kind of thing or something like that.
A little bit.
I don't know. Yeah, I liked that Koji character. I felt so bad for him in that situation, and then so kind of proud of him that he risked his life and completely went in full charge on that raid to kind of try and save Mitsuko.
Yeah.
And I would say it was him and Muto that I was rooting for. I didn't really care that Harada walked away with a movie.
Right.
And in some ways, maybe that's a fault of the film. But let's talk about that ending then.
Yeah.
And this one, I do think, we really don't care about spoilers here, obviously, if you've been listening. But if you don't want this movie spoiled at the end, turn it off now or wait. Everybody dies in that raid except for Hirata, although there's definitely a moment there where I thought he was dead.
Well, he's certainly been shot a number of times.
He's been blasted.
Yeah.
He runs out of the Yakuza headquarters where they had the raid after the police have come and gone. I mean, the police are still there. He grabs all the mags of films off the camera, like thanks his people, his crew that died. And there's a great... I loved the cameraman guy that just died with his eye on the camera. He's like still standing there. I loved it. He's running down the street screaming at the top of his lungs with these mags of film. And then you cut to the theater, the old art house 35 millimeter projector cinema where they all hung out, and they're screening what is essentially this movie that he just filmed, right? And everybody that you thought was dead is there wearing bandages, and standing up to applaud this movie that they've just watched. Mm-hmm. Do you make heads or tails of that? I certainly, there's no way any of those people survived from what we saw at the raid.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong.
I will.
I thought, so he grabbed the mags and ran out of there.
Yeah.
Then it was the theater? And then it cuts back to him running down the road? Because I thought him running down the road was the last thing, because then you hear the director yell, cut, on the,
Right, and they have the sort of like...
And I thought that was it, and then the credits came up.
I thought...
Because I thought that the theater thing was his, like...
imagination.
Delusion of he's been shot a million times, he's losing a lot of blood, and he was... I thought that was happening when he was still laying there. And then he woke up and grabbed all the film.
I will say this. Either way, I don't know how you look at that and not think it's a delusion.
Right. Yeah, I think it has to be, yeah.
Okay, well, do you think Harada did get up from this situation at the raid or no?
I think he did. And I kind of bought that under the rules, like the John Woo rules of horrible cinematic violence, where you can be shot 35 times, but you're still in the gunfight. Like that kind of thing. And so he's just on pure adrenaline running down the street, yelling fuck bombers, as I remember. And I was trying to tie that to the earlier scene where they ran down the street for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I couldn't, for some reason, I couldn't make the connection. That's one of those reasons I wanted to watch it again and see what other things there are to, like, kind of connect to each other. But I thought he survived it. I don't know how much longer he would survive if that story continued.
Right.
But I think just on pure adrenaline, he made it.
Okay, so even in that theater delusion, was he bandaged up too?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because I felt like there was a moment in that theater where the people that were killed were like not there, and then they're sort of revealed. And so I don't know. I'm going to watch that again. If anybody else has seen this and has like a heads or tails on what they made of it, I would love to kind of get some other opinions and feedback on it. Overall, though, what do you think? I've definitely seen, just briefly looking online, the criticism that, this is way style over substance.
Sure.
I feel like that's somewhat fair to lobby against this movie.
Yeah. I mean, there is the case to be made again that there really isn't a main character, and maybe there is no interest in having a main character. And it's really more of an interest in just building something to this insane crescendo of, comic violence. Because I think anyone who watches it will be able to name another movie or another show that intertwined a bunch of characters and stories in a better way, or in a better way, but in a way that pays off those characters, really pays off the stories. But at the same time, it's undeniably fun to watch. Yeah, I mean, do you have to have a main character if your movie's entertaining anyway?
I don't know. I don't think so. And I think part of, my excitement watching this was just like kind of watching those rules be broken a little bit, specifically with the structure. I'm just like, I just remember the day after, like sitting down to write going, ugh. Like I've all of my stuff is just linear. Like I've never done it.
Sure.
Like I don't even know how to wrap my head around kind of doing that to a degree. Like I'm just like, why don't I? Like at this point, it's 2016. How many years of movies do we have now? Like, shouldn't everything be non-linear? Like, shouldn't we be searching for those new like forms of storytelling?
You're a dinosaur.
I'm definitely a dinosaur, man. So, any little favorite beats, moments, characters that we haven't talked about?
Yes, I have a few written down. One is the line, "Cocaine is important."
Who said that?
I think it's when they're in the van.
And they're talking about movie making specifically, right? Weren't they?
Yeah. Like you've got, well, I thought it was the gangsters who had the cocaine.
Okay.
And they gave it to Koji to hold. Oh, that's
right.
And he's like, "Oh, what?" Like the cocaine is important. There was several times there was a music cue that was kind of a ripoff of the song Sleepwalk.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that bothered me because I kept waiting for that melody to kick in and then realized it was never going to come. Yeah. It's kind of a little bit of suspense there. Uh,
I wonder if they tried to get Sleepwalking for some reason, could not, or couldn't afford it, or just went a different route.
yeah,
or what?
yeah. I kind of assumed like it was probably something they had in there as like a temp track.
Yeah.
And I really do love the opening. I love that commercial.
Yeah, okay.
The girl is cute in the right way, and it's another thing that kind of makes you like the movie right off the bat. It was a great way to open it.
I didn't think about it till now, but I think pretty excellent job casting young and older people for the same role.
Oh, yeah.
That girl, the young girl, and then the girl that plays the older Mitsuko, you totally buy it. And I felt the same way about all the fuck bombers. How did you feel about the vomit fountain?
I've seen it. I've seen it happen before.
They use it as almost a way to further the plot along, because when Koji is vomiting, that's when they find Hirata's name, because he's made the wish to the god of cinema at this little shrine.
He wrote a note. Yeah. I
So
do think that's the
cool.
first time I've ever seen vomit as a plot device.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
That was impressive.
I also really just want to give a quick mention to, I liked the scene where Muto is talking to Koji about what budget he wants for this movie. And of course, Koji, remember, has no connection to film whatsoever and no desire to direct a movie, but he's just been forced into this position because of this girl, Mitsuko. And he's the metaphor he uses is like, you're doing a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner budget. It's like, something you do with your whore, your wife, or your mistress. And there was just all these little things. And I was like, oh, they're just totally taking the piss out of like studio and investors and things like that. And I just thought it was just a great little use there.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, man, and it sounds like you already had knowledge, like my big takeaway from this movie is absolutely this director. I got to see Suicide Club now. I sent you that trailer for, he did a movie called, I think it's Peace and Love. Love and Peace. Yeah. That looks incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't know how closely you looked at his filmography, but
clearly I didn't. One of my favorite movies is directed by the same guy.
He has not one, not two, 6 movies, Craig. 6 movies listed as 2015 releases.
Good grief.
6.
That he directed?
As director, yeah.
Holy cow.
I don't know how that's possible. And one of them was Love and Peace, which, that didn't look like any sort of like cheap, $10,000 throw it together kind of thing based on the trailer. He's got another movie I was just looking at called Tokyo Tribe from 2014, which the synopsis is, in an alternate Japan, territorial street gangs from opposing factions collectively known as the Tokyo Tribes, blah, 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 cross lines to conquer all of Tokyo. And the poster is amazing, and what I'm looking at as a still from the trailer says the world's first battle rap musical. I'll say that again. The world's first battle rap musical. I don't even know what that means, but I'm definitely going to watch it.
I love it.
It looks like he uses a lot of the same actors a bunch, so I think we'll see some of those people from Why Don't You Play in Hell and other things. And Wikipedia also says that he is making a documentary on the Fukushima nuclear plant disaster following the tsunami. So,
oh my God, what's that?
That's like? Yeah, could be really, really interesting and depressing and revealing and rage-inducing and terrifying.
Yeah,
I did want to say one little thing about. The company that released this is Alamo Drafthouse Cinemas.
Yeah.
And Drafthouse Films. Have you ever been to the Alamo Drafthouse?
I've never been to the Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah, neither have I. And they have chain. It's a theater chain. I think mostly known for being in Austin and Harry Knowles, Anicle News does a lot of the festival stuff there. But they do have theaters. They're popping up in Arizona and Virginia and elsewhere. But man, really good slate of movies from the Drafthouse Films filmography, which they just really got started in 2010, it looks like. But I wanted to mention that The Overnighters, the documentary that we talked about a while ago, is also one of their movies. So, man, good for them. We've done 2 of them now. Would you buy this movie as an English language remake?
Well, let's look at it this way.
Let's do it.
We now have Deadpool, super violent, R-rated, huge hit.
You know what? I'm happy for Deadpool. I really have a hard time buying that as a barometer for anything outside of the superhero genre still. Just because, I don't know. To me, it's just still so different from anything not involving guys in costumes.
Right.
That are coming from. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's an automatic pass for rated R violent movies. I don't know.
I agree with you to an extent, but it's also my understanding that the reason the new It adaptation was sort of deep sixed, besides like a few problems behind the scenes, was that Poltergeist didn't do well.
Right.
And it was sold on the strength of a clown's face.
Gotcha.
And I was kind of like, really? And that could all be a bunch of BS. But
so our Killer Clowns remake is out the window now. Right?
I know. So whatever. That's the way it goes. Yeah, not that Deadpool necessarily opens the door all the way, but it certainly would help because it's funny, it's crazy, it's people went to go see it, and it made money. So it's not just immediately like, oh, what? It's gory and there's weird stuff happening. So yeah, I mean, I think this could totally be adapted into an American movie. I mean, we didn't mention this before, but you already have a movie like Get Shorty, which is kind of has the same spine.
Yeah,
basically.
I didn't even think about that. You're absolutely right.
And of course that did great. So you go in there armed with those two things. So I'm thinking about something. It's like Deadpool, but it's like Get Shorty too. And they're like, what? And then everyone in the place has like dollar signs in their eyes.
Yeah. Can you pause while I get my checkbook and pen? Yeah.
I don't know if we have checks big enough.
I know. Well, since obviously, it's going to be a success, can we fill out the cast a little bit?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and it's hard. It's really hard. One of the things that I think could be a home run, and let me see what you think about this, is Sasaki, one of my favorite characters, the poor, beleaguered action star wannabe who is forced to wear the Bruce Lee tracksuit. By the way, I absolutely love the shot where Harada just pulls that tracksuit out of his pocket when they go and gets a fantastic shot. What about Mr. Channing Tatum for that?
He would definitely have the right sensibilities for it.
When you're talking guys, it could be, young American action star, like somebody they've been grooming to be the next Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Stallone, but funny, Channing Tatum.
I could see it.
Harada's tough, the director. Who I penciled in right now is Jason Schwartzman. And I know he has a tendency to play weaselly guys and can rub people the wrong way. I think that could be decent and good for this character. And also, I mean, if you remember the pure joy he had in Rushmore for putting on plays and just loving Rushmore in the clubs, like that's got to come through too as the guy that loves cinema so much he's willing to die for it.
I don't disagree that you could put him in this movie. But I think he would make a more interesting Koji, especially if you rewrote that role a little bit. Because he's kind of subdued, that guy. Like I feel like Harada needs to be somebody who, like maybe that guy, maybe he's going to pick up a gun during filming and start shooting people himself.
Harada goes to 11,
and then it's like who's our go to 11 guy? Who's the guy that can go to 11 and not just be shrill and obnoxious?
Kevin Hart.
I don't even know if he could. I don't know if I'd buy him.
It'd be kind of funny
wanting to make a movie that bad. Maybe that's the thing.
The only other ones I could think of, I blanked on the camera guy and the camera girl. I think you could. There's quite a few people you could plug in there that would be funny. Mitsuko, I went Mila Kunis. I don't know, and that to me also feels kind of like an obvious choice, but. I think she can play that sort of character that, she's not a good person, but you're still kind of like interested in what she's doing.
Well, like most people in the movie, she could go either way. She could end up good or bad. Yeah. And I kind of like the matchup of her and Jason Schwartzman.
I think so. I think it could work. Ikegami, the rival mob boss, maybe Michael Shannon. That'd be kind of fun and interesting. Give it some clout, maybe. And then for Muto, I went with the obvious and Anthony Michael Hall. I think
that's perfect. That's perfect.
We talked about we want him to come back and have a big role. I think it could be this, like the husband that's just trying to do right for his wife as she gets out of jail.
Kind of a fast talking.
He's clearly got a background already in making movies.
It's weird though. The whole time we were talking about this for Muto. I mean, what if you had Idris Elba? I mean, so think about like that guy went from The Wire.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah. And
you think about him as a pretty dangerous dude from that. If you're someone who watched it and you think of him that way.
I do.
And then for him to be kind of running things, but also like be a softie.
I like it.
I don't know.
I like it a lot.
I kind of like that. But then we got to redo Mila Kunis.
Maybe. Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is Zoe Saldana, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There's other people. There's other good people. Did you watch Chirac by any chance?
Not yet.
It's on Amazon. It's waiting for you.
It is.
It's not all slam dunks, but there's a lot of great stuff in there.
I've heard that, yes.
But the main girl in that is really good, and I don't know that I've seen her in anything before.
Well, you'll see her again in this, then I think is what we're saying. Am I wrong or am I crazy, or wasn't there a dude also in one of the mobs that had what looked like cornrows, but as if his hair was less than a centimeter long, like it was
like it was shaved and then pattern shaved into it. From which clan?
Oh God!
From the rival one?
No, I think he was in Muto. I think when they grabbed Koji, he's in the back seat there with those guys that are like punching him, or I don't know. If you're watching us after we talk about it, look for the guy with the pseudo weird cornrows. Yeah. Craziest thing I've ever seen.
Because that reminds me of actually probably one of my other favorite scenes is when, darn it, what's his name? Ikigami.
I think
Ikigami.
Yeah.
When he realizes that he's the head of everything, he just starts talking about changing all these things and telling these guys to go shave off all your hair and your eyebrows. Just go show Oh,
they're going to wear kimono robes the whole time, which they do, which is hilarious. And the next time you see them, and they're all like badasses in kimonos. That was, and I don't even remember what prompted him like doing that, but I thought it was really funny as well.
Yeah, it was just time to change things, and there it was.
Last thing I was going to ask you about is since I was so much drawn to this title, and that's what pulled me in, and it, as we determined, it has very little as far as literal connection to the movie or the plot itself. I was wondering if you had any titles in your toolbox that you like, but don't necessarily have a plot to go along with.
All
right, let's hear. I got two, so I thought we would just share them and get them out there in the world so nobody will steal them.
That's right, because that's how it works.
Yeah. I mean, I know, speaking personally, it'll be another 10 years before I ever come up with movie ideas for these titles, but I like the titles nonetheless.
Yeah, I have a few.
Hit me with one.
The first one that I think of is actually an idea I had 1,000 years ago with our student from school, Nick Panagopoulos.
Okay.
And it was called Dead Man Switch.
I like it.
And so do you know what a dead man switch is? Like as a real thing?
It's when you do like a body swap thing with a dead man.
Well, no, but it's actually a mechanical thing, so that like it connects to you if you're on certain machines, a motorcycle, I think maybe, or a water ski or something, jet ski, and so that if you become detached from it, it shuts down. It's a dead man switch.
Yes. So it's like what you have on your lawnmower, basically.
Exactly. Because that shit gets out of hand.
Yeah, it really does.
But I always liked that title, and we kind of had a plot for it, but the plot didn't really play into the title at all.
Sure.
But man, I love that title. That title, and then I have another title that's just the word quiet, which I kept trying to make it fit to a horror movie, and it just wouldn't. And I think it's probably already one called Quiet by now. And then
you can always go The Quiet.
The Quiet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Into the Quiet.
Quiet question mark.
I like that. Actually, what I really want to bring back are quotations, because I feel like quotation marks have been left out of movie titles and posters for too long. I would love to just put things like quiet in quotation marks. I think would be fantastic.
Is there a famous movie I'm not thinking of that has quotation marks in the title that makes you think?
For some reason, I feel like maybe I'm misremembering this, but every movie made in the 40s, for some reason, like Casablanca probably has quotation marks, as if someone said it, or if it's like Casablanca. I don't know.
Yeah, they're
like it's
talking
kind of
crap
sarcastic.
about it. Yeah, that terrible movie. Well, I like all of those.
Well, thank you.
Those are all good.
What about you?
I have one that I've been toying with for a little bit called Not For Nothing. I like that as a title.
That is good.
I don't know what you do with it or what it means even, but I like it. I've always liked the word hole puncher.
Yeah, I remember you bringing that up as like a band name at some point or something.
Yeah, and then it sounds like a band name.
It does.
You know, it's got a slightly dirty connotation to it if you want to go that route.
Sure.
I was thinking, actually, you know, when we talked to Damian Leahy about Korean cinema and all the horror movies like Dumpling and Red Shoe and all these like object-based horror movies. Yeah. Maybe there's a hole puncher horror movie out there.
That's possible.
I'm not saying it's about like a haunted hole puncher or you get killed with a hole puncher. Let's be smarter than that, maybe. But not just like one level smarter, not like a whole lot smarter.
Or you just go the Sono route and you just call it hole puncher, and then at the end everybody's like, "Well, where's the hole puncher? What did I miss?" And then it's like too late. Yeah,
correct. I think that's all I got for you. I like this movie a lot. I don't think it's perfect, but it's a very fun experience. It's a really good movie, I think, to sit down and stream at home if you're sort of an adventurous film goer and you have any sort of connection to a desire to make movies or have ever made a movie or just sort of enjoy that kind of thing. I would definitely seek this out. And if this is not the one for you, look at Sion Sono's filmography and see if you can't find something else that might interest you, because it seems like he's doing some really cool stuff.
Agreed. Yeah, man.
Should we talk about our next episode?
Let's talk about it, man. That way you don't have to put a loop in right there.
I won't.
Shawn, I've got some titles for you. And I'll be honest with you, I think the first one is going to be the one, and I hope so.
You're going to get me. God, it's been a while since I've stumped you beyond one.
Right?
Okay.
Right? Shawn, I want to know if you've ever heard of the 1941 Fritz Lang movie, Manhunt.
That is the one about Hannibal Lecter?
Damn. Yep. That's the first one.
Excuse me. Ye old Hannibal Lecter?
In quotation marks.
You know what's crazy?
Mm-hmm.
I like yesterday read something about a Fritz Lang movie that has the word moon and woman in the title.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of embarrassing, right?
Yeah, it seems like I don't know what's going on in that movie.
I totally thought you were going to say that. I'm like, yes, I've heard of this. Never heard of Manhunt.
Yes.
I'm really interested to see more from this filmmaker and have neglected him for too long.
Indeed.
So let's watch Manhunt.
I want to reveal the stakes for me personally on this, because
Are you involved in a Manhunt?
No.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
It's just I've been reflecting on some of my suggestions in the past few episodes, and I haven't felt very good about.
You don't have to apologize, man.
I know.
We know you have bad taste. It's cool.
It's true. But every now and again, I want to deliver one that we haven't heard of. That just
I liked The Veil more than you did. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I'm glad we watched it.
It's not even that I don't like. Okay. Anyway.
You don't have to apologize. But you're hoping this is the one. Have you seen this one?
I've never seen this one. But again, it's Fritz Lang. It's got some great people in the cast. Mm-hmm. The summary of it sounds super interesting. Like,
okay, don't tell me.
Man.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be the one for me.
This
Shawn.
is it.
Okay?
I'm very hopeful. Where can we watch Manhunt?
Oh God, I have no idea. It's very old.
Manhunt.
Probably can't see it anywhere.
Okay, cool.
No, it's on Netflix.
Great.
So streaming on Netflix. Yeah, everybody, please go check it out. And then you can go check us out on Twitter at Never Podcast. You can check us out on the webs at neverheardpodcast.com. And you could check out Shawn at the library.
That's right.
And you could just check out.
I don't have anything to add to that. Thank you for listening. We'll talk soon.
Let's do it.
All right.